Can you let me know on Instagram if you can hear me okay? And if you are joining me here on YouTube, can you let me know? I'd love if I could get just some feedback on audio since we had some issues previously. Can you hear me? Yay. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. Good evening, Shoshona. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Hi. Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's Wednesday. I know we canceled last week because we had no air conditioning in our home and it was a sauna in here. And the idea of going live and being friendly and nice and approachable was not in the cards for me. So we did a reschedule. It's air conditioned. It's cool here. Tonight, we're talking about 7 tips to increase your protein intake. And if you're someone who's like, I am not about to suck down protein drinks and chalky protein powders, then I've got lots of tips that are going to help you. If you're catching me on the YouTube replay, hello from the future or from the past, you're in the future. Know that you can use the chapters that you will find below over on YouTube to jump ahead to avoid all the intros and things like that and get right into the content that we're going to share tonight. If you're joining me on Instagram, hello, welcome, and thanks for being here with me as I'm sharing. I'm also live on YouTube. So if you want to head over to YouTube and use the chat feature there, I do find it to be a little bit more engaging and just more about the conversation and less about being notified every time someone joins. And you can also do other things while you join and use the YouTube app. People use it while they're driving. They just kind of plug it in, drive, listen like it's a live podcast. You can also be looking at other things on your phone, whereas with Instagram Live, I don't love that you're just kind of like locked in. If you are new here, welcome. Hello, my name is Beth Manos Bricky. I am a certified functional nutritional therapist. I am certified in nutritional psychology. I am a level 3 restorative wellness practitioner, which just allows me to essentially order and interpret labs and to support my clients in their nutrition habits, supplements, personalized plans, even deeper than the other certifications that I have. And I'm currently completing my CPT with NASM, which is my certification in personal training. I am here to join all of you. I help my clients navigate their mindset and their behavior changes with compassion, with grace, and with ease. And I just hope to bring a little bit of that here to these weekly lives that I'm calling Balanced Wellness Wednesdays with Beth. We're kind of shifting gears this week. Hello, Julie and Jesse, and hello, Mark. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Hello, everyone joining me on the Instagram. We're shifting gears a little bit. The last few weeks, we've been talking a lot about mindset and kind of just the role that our mindset and the psychology side of behavior change and nutrition and fitness habit changes. I think that's such a huge part of doing this work. But I also want to get really kind of into the nitty gritty with you all and a little bit more practical in the everyday steps and habits. So tonight, we're talking all about protein and how to increase your protein intake. And I'm just excited to have this chance to connect with all of you every week for growing and learning and just digging deeper and answering your questions and connecting with all of you. You can go back in the archives on YouTube for all of our past live broadcasts. And we also do audio versions of these that I release on the Between Meals podcast. You can find it on Apple iTunes and anywhere that podcasts are found. So if you want to catch the audio only in the future, any of the ones that we've done in the past, please head over to Apple iTunes or wherever you listen to the podcast. How's everyone doing tonight? Is everybody excited to talk about protein? I feel like this is the topic that I asked recently if people wanted to talk about all or nothing thinking or dive into tips for increasing your protein intake. And this one won by a landslide. So I'm really excited. You are pro protein, Mark. I love that about you. I think this is a conversation that a lot of you are going to resonate with. And I want to share before we dive in. I'm a big fan of like cool party tricks. Yay. I'm so excited that you're excited too. I love cool party tricks. I love fast ways to learn how to take the things I'm going to teach you tonight and put it into practice. What is a quick and easy way for you to like roam the grocery store and say, hey, is this high protein? Is it a good source of protein? So something that you can do, and I brought Mark's. I'm saying Mark's because Mark is a fan of chunky peanut butter. And if I'm going to have peanut butter, I want creamy all day long. I am team creamy with peanut butter, but I brought Mark's chunky Jif peanut butter from the cabinet that have I gotten into with a spoon in a state of desperation because I don't have creamy peanut butter? Yes, I have. Peanut butter is often one of those foods that is accidentally mistaken or poorly marketed as a source of protein. And while it has some protein, it is not a great source of protein. So I'm going to show you using this label a really cool party trick for how to determine if Team Creamy and Team Crunchy, we're getting all kinds of votes over on YouTube. A really quick party trick to determine if a food is in fact high in protein. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at the nutrition label and you're going to check out the grams of protein per serving. So for this particular peanut butter, a serving size is 2 tablespoons. And fun fact, if you've ever actually measured 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, it's a lot different than what you think is 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. I digress. 2 tablespoons of this peanut butter has 190 calories in it, and it has 7 grams of protein. So we're going to take that number of protein, 7 grams, and we're going to multiply it by 10, or really simply just add a 0 to the end. And what we're going to do, and you can do this with any product that has a nutrition label, anytime that you want to do this really quick, hey, is this high protein? Is it a great source of protein? You're going to add that 0, and now you're going to compare that number to the number of calories in that serving. So 7 grams of protein in this peanut butter per serving. Add a 0, we have 70. Now, how does that compare to the label? Well, the label says a full serving has 190 calories. So if a food has equal to or more than the number of calories in protein, are you following? So 70, add a 0, 70 does not equal and is not more than 190. So that would mean that this is not a high protein food. Can we eat this food? Absolutely. Is it a food you need to avoid or be afraid of or never have in your cabinet? I'm not saying that. I am saying that protein is not a great, or peanut butter is not a great source of protein. So you can use this anytime you look at a product. Here's why I love this is that high protein, or even just labeling on the front of any products, like even stuff that has no reason to say protein on it. Like today I saw protein granola at Trader Joe's, and did it have protein? It did. Was it a great source of protein? It absolutely wasn't. I forget the exact numbers. I think it was like 6 grams of protein to like 200 something calories a serving. So what that means is we can look at a label and just quickly eyeball it, add that 0, and compare, how does this look? How many of my calories are coming from protein and how many are just kind of coming therefore from carbs and fat? So it gives you an opportunity to like sort of suss out or be a little bit of a detective for kind of the marketing and all of the labels and the stuff they slap onto products now, calling high protein, or taking the time to say 10 grams of protein in whatever this thing is. And that's like on the front of this peanut butter, it says 7 grams of protein per serving. Cool story, bro. Like, what does that mean? So if you want to use that tool at the grocery store, it's not a proprietary Beth tool. I don't know who came up with it. I love how simple and quick and easy it is to just really quickly assess a situation. I think it just helps you become a more savvy consumer. And again, if you're looking for products and foods that are high protein, to kind of just like weed out. There's things like high protein cookies. In fact, a company whose protein powder I love just recently released a protein cookie. Does it have more protein than other cookies? It absolutely does. Is it a good source of protein compared to the amount of calories that you're getting in that cookie? It really isn't that great. For me, and we'll talk about this in a bit, I'd rather just eat some protein and have a good chocolate chip cookie that's not like masquerading as a cookie, but it's actually just like piled full of whey protein. No, you do not get to eat the whole jar. I'm sorry. Well, you can, Julie, actually, if you want. You can eat the whole damn jar. I would guarantee that your stomach's not going to feel great. But hopefully this is a good tip to get you started on just like, again, being a savvy consumer. So before we get into the tips of simple ways, kind of must-have tips for increasing your protein intake, I want to very quickly go through why protein is so important. So I'd love to hear from all of you. If you struggle with getting your protein in, like, are you somebody who knows why protein is important? Like, what for you is the reason you're here and wanting to increase your protein intake? Here's the thing, is that protein is the master macronutrient, and it provides so many incredible benefits for our entire body. For most, increasing your protein intake is probably one of the most simple and effective ways that you can begin to improve your health and achieve your health goals, whatever those might be. Um, by consuming enough protein, we can support muscle building. We are supporting muscle repair and recovery. Protein serves as a building block for all of our muscles, and it engages, or excuse me, it aids in the growth and repair. So if you're someone who's going into the gym and lifting weights and you're like, I don't know why I'm not seeing any results from all of this time I'm spending in there, you might want to take a look at how much protein you're consuming, because you're not going to build strong muscles. You're not going to repair those muscles. You're not going to avoid injuries if you are under consuming or deficient in protein. So, of course, it's especially important. But if you're someone who's like, I don't work out, I don't lift weights, I don't exercise, um, you still need protein. And you're going to learn a little bit more about why that is. It's also the building block of every single tissue in your body. So, not just your muscles, but your cells, your skin, your hair, all of these are made up of protein. There are also proteins involved in making enzymes throughout our entire body. It is crucial, absolutely crucial for energy production. It supports our liver function and our detoxification pathways. Here's why I talk about it a lot with my clients, especially those working on making nutrition changes, improving and changing their nutrition habits and behaviors, is that protein helps us with satiety and satisfaction in our meals. So, not only does it play a crucial role in all of those things I started to mention already, but if you're eating meals and you're often hungry within 30 minutes or an hour, there's a good chance you're not eating enough protein. Protein takes longer to digest than our carbohydrates, which means it helps to keep us fuller for longer periods of time. And we can use this to our benefit. And it can be particularly helpful if you're someone who's working on managing hunger and you're creating a calorie deficit for fat loss. It's really critical as well, as you heard, with blood sugar balance, because it slows the impact on blood sugar that the carbohydrates that we're eating can have on their own. So, if you're someone who often grazes all day because you never truly feel satisfied, if you often find yourself kind of overeating or just snacking, especially at night, what we're going to talk about in today's little broadcast, I think, is especially for you. Anybody make changes to their protein intake and notice the changes in their fullness and just how satisfied they feel after meals? It's one of the first things I hear from my clients when we work on their protein intake. And I think it's kind of mind blowing to people how often in their lives, I know for me, at times before I did all this work and learned all of this, that I didn't realize the impact it had in keeping me feeling full and satisfied and satiated. Jesse said yes. Um, Here's another really awesome benefit. Protein has a high thermic effect, meaning compared to carbohydrates and fats, this means your protein actually requires more energy to digest, to absorb, and to utilize in our bodies. So when you're consuming protein, a portion of the calories are burned during the digestion process, which can then support a more optimal metabolic rate. Someone on Instagram shared, I'm not searching for mid afternoon snacks. And someone else said, yes, 100% to increasing protein. A couple of yeses over on YouTube. Awesome. Yeah, that's the thing. I think a lot of times we attach this moral value to feeling like we don't have self control or discipline with food. And a lot of times, something you hear me probably say like a lot, too much, but I don't think so, is that if we're undernourished, and not just calorically, but undernourished with the appropriate macronutrients or the balance of those, and you're constantly hungry, it's not a moral issue. It's not a lack of self control and it's not a lack of discipline. It's truly that your body is never feeling satisfied. So, again, this thermic effect is a really cool aspect as well, because your body's actually utilizing more energy to break that down. It also plays a really critical role in supporting our immune function and helping us to fight off infections. Protein helps us to produce antibodies and other immune factors, helping us to have a strong and effective immune system and one that functions optimally. It's also involved in our hormone health. So whatever kind of hormones you have, you're not making those hormones without protein. It is a building block of all hormones, and it assists in the production of hormones that regulate all types of bodily functions and bodily processes, from thyroid and reproductive health to our hormones of blood sugar and the hormones utilized in the stress response system. So we need to make sure that we're getting enough protein so that our body can make all of those important things. So if you are someone struggling with any type of hormone imbalance, which is a pretty vague term, but if you are especially struggling with reproductive hormone balance and you are not prioritizing adequate protein, you are missing a critical and crucial building block. And you can take all the cool supplements you read about online and do all these hormone resets, but none of them are going to work because your body can't literally produce adequate hormones without enough protein. Aging. So this is something that often like blows people's minds about protein is that as we age, our bodies naturally undergo muscle loss. It's a process known as sarcopenia. We need to consume adequate protein because, especially more during this time, because in this stage of life, we need to support muscle maintenance and to prevent and slow age related muscle loss. And so I think most people would be shocked to learn that you likely need more protein in your 40s, 50s, and 60s than possibly you needed in your 20s because of this muscle loss. So when I tell some of my clients who are in their 50s and 60s that they may need as much or more than my clients in their 20s, they're like, what? No way. We need to provide our body with enough protein to preserve our muscle mass, which we are now losing at a greater rate with every decade, to preserve our strength, to keep us strong, to keep our bones strong and more agile, and to keep us up and moving, promoting better mobility and just obviously independence. Like I want to be able to get up and off the toilet when I'm in my, 80s and 90s. So this is why she eats the chicken. And then here's the other thing that's really important. If you are on any type of weight loss, fat loss, or body composition journey, this is something that is critically missed. And I think this is a conversation we're hearing a bit more about now with all of these weight loss drugs kind of becoming more and more in the picture and trendy. But we want to, when it comes to body composition and fat loss, we want to maintain our muscle mass. Maintaining adequate protein intake is essential for that. Hold on, I don't want to miss the comments on Instagram. Someone shared, I didn't realize that makes sense considering I didn't build muscle as quickly in my 40s now as I did in my 20s. Yeah, absolutely. It's a little bit harder. That's why it always makes me laugh when people are like in their 40s saying, I don't want to lift weights and get bulky. It's like, first of all, good luck. It's incredibly hard to do that. Second of all, give yourself a few years and a whole lot of protein and lots of calorie surplus. But as it concerns body composition and fat loss, we don't want to experience muscle loss. You might see a change on the scale, but this is why weight loss and fat loss are not the same thing. If we are in an appropriate caloric deficit for our body, where we are consuming fewer calories than our body requires and is expending, protein becomes our ally for maintaining and preventing muscle loss. It provides the essential necessary amino acids to support muscle preservation while our body taps into stored body fat for use, right? So if your goal is to lose body fat, you need to maintain your lean muscle and you need to prioritize protein intake. Hard stop, big exclamation point. Please, please, please do not neglect your protein if you are on a fat loss journey. Our mental health and our moods are greatly impacted by protein intake. So, our brain actually relies on an adequate supply of amino acids found in our proteins to create neurotransmitters, which are essential for communication between our brain and our cells. These neurotransmitters, things like serotonin, which I'm sure you've heard about, and dopamine, these are the things that are a part of regulating our moods and our emotions and just our overall mental well being. When we consume enough protein, we provide our brain with the building blocks it needs to support adequate and optimal production of those neurotransmitters. One of the biggest things that we covered in the certification I took in nutritional psychology was this idea that these things shouldn't be looked at separately, that nutrition shouldn't be separate of the things that we're doing in therapy and medication interventions, which are all important and have their place, but we have to be looking at the foods that we're eating. Huge impact on our mental health and our moods. So when we do this, we're providing our brain with these building blocks. We have more positive moods, more balanced and better mental health. And here's the fun fact is that if you are not getting the protein that you need from your diet, your body will begin to break your own tissues down to figure out how to get it, to get the adequate resources. This means we are much more prone to injuries. We experience poor recovery after workouts. Um, We also, this can increase inflammation and pain levels. So if you're someone who struggles with these things, you need to be getting enough protein. And we can also see, again, immune issues and all these other things that we talked about frequently. Um, let's see. Muscuzi B said, I love body composition journey. I've never heard that before. Yeah. I mean, everybody's on a different journey. And sometimes the body composition journey isn't just about weight loss and fat loss. Sometimes it's improving our muscle mass, and people who say, oh, I want to get toned. You're not doing that without protein. You're just not absolutely not doing it. So let's dive into the 7 tips for getting more protein in. Before I do that, any questions about why protein is so dang important? I want to make sure to leave space for that, because I know this broadcast and this live isn't about the why, but I don't think that we can talk about how to do better and increase our intake if we don't know why it's so important. And thanks everybody on YouTube for sharing that it's good info. I'm glad to hear that it resonates. I like the nerdy stuff. I'm a big fan of knowing, like I said, why are we doing the things? What is the importance of this? So let's dive in. Let's dive into some of the reasons, or some of the ways, excuse me, some of the tips for increasing our protein intake. Here's the thing I want to lead with, is that this does not need to and should not be complicated. Let's make it easy. If you make it complicated and hard and really uncomfortable and just super challenging and expensive, you're not going to stick with it. And then we're not doing ourselves any good. So prioritize protein rich foods at all of your meals and your snacks. No duh, right? But like, also, I look at food and mood journals all day long. We're not always doing that, right? We know what we should, but we're not always doing it. So that's kind of number one. First and foremost is protein on my plate. That's why, if you've learned the party plate method from me, the P in party plate is prioritize protein. Doesn't mean all of your plate has to be a big slab of beef, and it doesn't mean all of your calories need to be coming from protein, but you do need to prioritize an adequate serving of protein at every meal. And if you are someone who snacks, and we'll talk about that in a moment, make sure you're getting protein there as well. I do recommend approximately, lots of nuance here, but a good area to aim for is approximately 25 to 35 grams of protein per meal. Now, if you're only eating one meal, that's very, very low. If you're eating two, still probably low. If you're eating three and snacking, that's a really, really clutch spot to be in. And then maybe if you are someone that snacks, maybe shooting for 10 to 15 grams of protein at your snacks. If you're not a snacker, you're going to need more at your meals. And listen, I'm not a big snacker. I'm a 3 good size, really dense meal girl, kind of girl, whatever. I like 3 meals a day. I'm not a big snacker. Um, if you're looking at your whole day, a good place to start is shooting for approximately, as a minimum, around 80 to 100 grams daily. Most people aren't doing that. That's why I say start that there. If you're on a journey in the gym, if you're looking to increase muscle mass, if you're working on body composition goals, any sort of compassionate fat loss journey, then that may not be enough. Yeah, I'm actually going to get to that in just a second. So thanks for asking that question. The question was, I feel like I heard 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight a day. And they asked if that's accurate. So if you're already meeting those minimums that I just mentioned with ease, then we can start to talk about dialing it in a little bit more, and what that might look like, kind of more optimal. If you are on a health journey or any of those things I just mentioned, that might be more like 0.7, zero point 0.8 to upwards of 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body weight. Now, if we're in a larger body and we're in a fat loss journey and we're carrying around extra weight, we may want to kind of slide to the low end of that scale. If you're closer to what would be, quote unquote, I'm using huge air quotes because this is just, what is ideal? If you're closer to what would be seen as your ideal body weight, if you're not looking to lose fat, if you're kind of maintaining, then, and you're on the leaner side, it may be closer to that 1 or beyond. We may even talk about going further, again, if you're working on things in the gym or in your fitness journey. I talk more specifically inside of Empowered Nourishment about how to determine exactly what that might be for you, and how to start breaking it down and even starting to figure out some of your macro ratios. But those things I just shared are really, really good starting points, especially if you've never really thought about this stuff before. Here's a fun fact, is that if you're not eating breakfast, if you are a breakfast skipper, I can almost guarantee you that you are not getting enough protein every day. I can almost guarantee it. And if you're someone who's just slamming 1 or 2 eggs at breakfast every day and then just eating kind of smallish meals the rest of the day, not really putting much focus, you're also probably not getting enough protein. I love eggs. Eggs have so many incredible nutrients and vitamins and minerals and a great source of protein and fat, but they're not extremely high in protein. One egg only has 6 grams of protein. So go back to what I just shared. You have 2 eggs, your breakfast has 12 grams of protein. Nothing wrong with a 12-gram of protein breakfast, but you're kind of starting the day in this lower number, and it's going to be a lot harder to catch up to get closer to your optimal or ideal amount of protein for the day. So if you're having only 2 eggs, you might want to consider adding some deli meat, or some sort of. I love lean ground turkey at breakfast and adding that to eggs and doing like a hash. But if you're 2 eggs at breakfast and a little deli meat on bread and having a sandwich at lunch, you're definitely not getting enough protein in your day. I can guarantee it. If this is all new territory for you, start looking at the protein content of your foods. Use that tool I shared at the beginning of this. If you're just joining me live, I shared a really cool tool for connecting with and checking in to see if the food that you're eating is adequate or high protein. So go back and check that in the replay. Use that as a tool. You might want to start looking up individual foods to kind of determine, just to kind of start to educate yourself, right? We don't know what we don't know. And I teach many of my clients how to just track protein for exactly that reason, just to connect with and to learn what is the nutrient quality of what I'm putting in my body. And it's not a tool of restriction. It isn't about, punitive efforts. It's simply about learning and better understanding. And so again, inside of Empowered Nourishment, I offer you the tools and teach you how to use those tools to gather that information. So first tip, now that you kind of know around how much you should be, or some optimal starting point minimums for protein intake, how many, show of hands, or use the chat box, obviously, because I can't see your hands, how many of you are already kind of hitting those minimums that I mentioned, that 25 to 35 grams per meal, approximately 80 to 100 grams per day as a minimum? I saw a couple clients of mine log in, at least on Instagram, so I know they're going to be like me. I hope they are. So number one, the tip to work on increasing your protein intake, really basic, but just increase your serving sizes. I know that sounds super duper simple, but if you are not already eating a protein source at every meal and every snack, start there. Just aim for a serving of protein. Begin there. That gets you in the direction of where we want to go. I got to definitely know over on Instagram. Not yet, I think. I'm not, but it's a new health goal. I love that. Yeah, you shared a few weeks ago that you were considering starting to track that, which I love. So aim for 1 to 1.5 palm-sized servings of protein per meal. That's a great starting point if you're already not eating protein at every meal. If you are not someone who snacks, you may need a little bit more. If you're snacking, again, you may be on a little bit less. This is the easiest way. This is how I approach increasing and getting enough protein. Easiest way is to just increase your serving sizes, especially of your lean proteins. If you are used to like tiny almond mom sized servings of protein and it's like 3 ounces of a baby serving, you might want to try more like 4 or 6 ounces of raw animal protein. Eating just 3 or 4 ounces, that's the raw weight I'm talking about, of an animal protein per meal, is going to make hitting your daily goals rather hard. It's going to be a little bit more challenging. I got a couple of not even closes over on YouTube as well. Especially if you're only eating 3 meals, as I mentioned, you might be struggling to get those minimums we just discussed. Something to think about depending on where you're eating. A lot of restaurants, when you order a protein, they're giving you, like, you order something with a chicken on, chicken on a salad or something like that. It's like barely 3 ounces. Often I will order double protein at restaurants for that purpose. So start by shooting maybe for more like 4 or 6 ounces, the raw weight of your animal protein per meal. I think that is the easiest way to kind of bump up your days. Adjust as needed. The easiest way to increase is to just add a little bit more to meals that you're already eating as you can. It may take you a bit to slowly increase to a more optimal amount based on your hunger and fullness and your appetite, your own digestion, right? Like, it takes your body time and energy and effort to break these foods down. So give your body time to catch up. Don't go from having no protein ever to trying to have like a 16-ounce steak at breakfast. Your digestion, your digestion is not going to love that. It is not going to be fun. And this is a really good time to pause and say that there is no right way to eat, meaning frequency and even quantity of meals, meaning some people, as I mentioned, do really, really well with 3 good size meals a day, and other people do like 5 smaller, more frequent meals. You're going to find lots of information and recommendations to help you determine what is right for you inside of Empowered Nourishment. So if you're someone who is struggling currently with hunger signaling, poor energy levels, blood sugar balance, when you learn how to support your unique needs with this mealtime frequency and all of these things that we're talking about, knowing that it can differ from person to person and may even change at points for you is really key for kind of beginning the journey of finding how to nourish yourself and do so in a confident and empowering way, instead of me saying everybody should eat every X amount of hours and this amount of meals a day and this many times. Like that, that's just not how we work. Once you know your daily protein goal, you simply can just divide that up across how many meals you prefer to eat. So if you are someone who's like, I like 3 meals, and you know that you're shooting for 100 grams a day, you can break that up to approximately 33, 35 grams per meal. And then you've got your 100 grams. Boom. And again, we talk about all of that inside of Empowered Nourishment. So, number 2, tips for increasing your daily protein intake: lean on dairy. If you tolerate dairy foods, and I know a lot of you are lactose intolerant and do not, and for this I apologize, but for my folks who can eat and tolerate dairy, lean on the dairy foods. They can play a really, really, really critical role in getting enough protein, but they're also a really wonderful source of a lot of important micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, etc. These are foods like Greek yogurt, cottage cheese. I know cottage cheese is having this glow up, annoying moment where everyone's throwing in everything. Eat the cottage cheese how you like the cottage cheese. You don't have to make pancakes out of cottage cheese if you don't want to. Eat a bowl of cottage cheese. Cottage cheese is an amazing source of protein. I love it. Just any kind of cheese. Over here, we love the Trader Joe's light string cheese. We also buy Baby Bell at Costco. Those are great little snacks to increase your protein intake. All little things that can be eaten as a snack on the go. That's what I love about dairy, is that it's a little bit more transportable and compact. Nobody's, throwing a steak in their purse. Maybe they are, but cheese sticks, I'll take them on my walks sometimes in the morning. Super awesome. If you know that you don't tolerate dairy, if you cannot have dairy, please know that most, not all, not all, but most non-dairy alternatives have very little protein in them. I'm sad to tell you. So most non-dairy yogurts are not really going to do much for you in that way. Use that tool I shared at the beginning of this broadcast to maybe understand a little bit if your non-dairy products have adequate protein, but unfortunately most do not, because they're not made from dairy. They're made from like coconut and nuts and other things. I know how much it sucks if you can't have the dairy. If you've been dairy free for some time and you are clear on what it is that you're reactive to, you might explore lactose free dairy, or maybe even if it's cow milk dairy only, you might explore sheep or goat milk. If you're 100% reactive to dairy across the board, you could ignore tip number 2 because this is not going to work for you. Number 3 is to plan and prepare. This is so crucial for getting enough protein in. It's to plan your meals in advance. And I'm not talking that you have to do like meal prep and like use the little containers like the fitness girlies do. My camera's all weird. Whatever. Um, it's just prepping your meals, preparing and thinking about your meals and snacks ahead of time. That is so crucial for reaching your protein goals. Hey, Mark, if you're listening to me, can you come get Sari? Because she's outside of my office, like hardcore whining, and it's incredibly distracting. And I can't think when she's doing that. So if you're listening to this and can come get her, I'd love that. Thank you. um, Batch prepping. I'm not a like make the food ahead, plan the meals, put them in the glass containers type, but I am a batch prepper. We will buy proteins in large amounts, like 2, 3 pounds, cook it up, and then know that we can use it. Very versatile recipes, throw it into different things. I call that component meal prep. It's a really great way to just have what you need and make it incredibly easy. This is just cooking large amounts of food ahead of time so you can throw it together and then you have the building blocks. That's really all it is. You can also just try, this is something that works for a lot of my clients, is to just know what you have in your fridge ready to go to make balanced meals to get adequate protein and simply just write down, here's what I'm going to eat tomorrow. I'm going to grab a can of tuna for lunch. I've got that already cooked chicken. I'm going to make a scramble in the morning, throw cottage cheese and some eggs in there. And for dinner, we're making those steaks that I pulled out. Just write it down so you have a plan and you know in advance what you're doing. It just makes sure that you have what you need, you have easy access, and we're kind of taking that decision fatigue out of it. And when you're preparing, you're also remembering, hey, I'm going to take protein out to be defrosted, or I need to. I'm sitting down to think about what I'm eating tomorrow, and I realize I don't have anything ready. Again, I teach something inside of Empowered Nourishment called Component Meal Prep, and there's actually a guidebook in there to help walk you through how to do some of this work and even recipes and simple proteins you can batch prep ahead of time. And embrace half-assed cooking. That's something I teach all the time. Rotisserie chicken, frozen cooked chicken, burger patties, those Kevin meals, pre-cooked seafood, canned tuna, canned chicken, canned salmon. Sometimes planning and preparing isn't the problem. It's trying to figure out what to eat when the time comes. So try to think about foods that you can use as building blocks so that you're not coming up and worrying about trying to come up with some kind of gourmet meal. I don't know how many of you here have simple prep items like that for protein that work for you, but we've really kind of found ways to make that work around here, and we have a lot of simple proteins we can grab and go. Number 4 is protein-packed breakfasts. So it's starting your day with a protein-rich breakfast. And reason this is so important is a lot of times we're playing catch up in the rest of the day. If we're skipping breakfast or not putting a prioritization on protein in the morning. So again, a protein-rich, start strong, as I call it, breakfast. Have some eggs, some lean ground turkey, or some ground beef. Have a big bowl of Greek yogurt or a protein smoothie. As they say, eat the frog, which, by the way, every week I've been saying these weird sayings and saying, where do these come from? Like, where do we get this from? Apparently, eat the frog is a Mark Twain thing. And he once said that if the first thing you do in the morning is to eat a live frog, you can go through the rest of your day with the satisfaction of knowing that it is probably the worst thing that's going to happen to you all day long. And that's kind of the concept of like, get ahead of it, right? Get ahead of trying to play catch up at 7 o'clock at night of, oh my gosh, I have 20 grams of protein and it's 7 p.m. If you're eating the frog, literally or figuratively, I hope not literally, but maybe that's your bag. I don't know. I know people eat frog legs. I don't. Eat the frog, eat a protein forward breakfast, set yourself up for success, and then you're not playing catch up for the rest of the day. Number 5, for tips to increase your protein intake, what I call protein boosts. So thanks for the frog emoji on YouTube. I love that. Protein boosts are things that you can do to add to your meals. So some quick tips for that. If you are having eggs in the morning, add 2 to 3 egg whites in addition to your 2 scrambled eggs. You can add egg whites to oatmeal. This is one that a lot of my clients love. You can buy the carton of egg whites when you're making your oatmeal, scramble, kind of stir in the egg whites. You almost won't notice that they're there. The kind of texture mixes really nicely. Put some stuff on top of your oatmeal to make your mouth happy and know that you're getting extra protein in with your breakfast. Add egg whites to soup or things of that nature, stews and other, breakfast hashes. Cottage cheese to your eggs. That is one of my favorite things. It makes for very cheesy, creamy, delicious, fluffy eggs, and you boost that protein up. Something I do very frequently is I make yogurt based dressings, salad dressings. I eat a salad almost every day. I love salads so much. I love just blending Greek yogurt and adding different spices and things. You get a creamy kind of ranch style dressing, but now you're boosting your protein even more. You can add protein powder to your oatmeal. You can add protein powder to your Greek yogurt. We'll talk more about protein powder in just a moment because I really love food forward whenever possible. You can add beans or tofu to your meals, again, to boost. We'll talk a little bit more about plant based protein in just a moment. And again, supplementing and using protein drinks. So, if you're someone who really struggles to get protein in and struggles to eat enough protein, um, get a protein drink, add some coffee to it, or vice versa. Add some protein powder to coffee if you're a coffee drinker. Make it a little morning shake situation. Or something we do over here is we have midday protein drinks, and we throw a little cold brew in because we're big fans of the coffee flavors. Whatever you got to do to get it down. I love the Orgain brand, like containers, like the little boxed proteins. I do their grass fed milk protein. Mark and a lot of our friends love those Premier protein drinks. I usually drink one of those a day. It's a good way for me to hit my protein goals. And again, I'll share in a moment some tips for protein powder. And then also in YouTube, I'll be adding some links to some of the protein powders I recommend, both animal based, whey based, non dairy animal based, and a few plant protein powders that I recommend. Number 6 is to use plant-based proteins to fill in the gaps. And why I say it like this is because most plant-based proteins do not contain on their own the full complete profile of essential amino acids that we need and that we're getting from full complete proteins. They're often missing one or more essential amino acids, and they contain suboptimal amounts even when they are more complete. These are amino acids that we need. These are the building blocks. This is what we need to thrive, and they're necessary that we get them through food consumption. So, I do not generally recommend that unless you're putting a ton of effort into really optimizing a plant based diet. I really don't recommend that the majority of your protein comes from plant protein, right? I don't recommend that being your main sources of protein, but they're really awesome for filling in the gaps. If you are going to eat plant based protein, you are likely going to have to fill in the gaps with some supplementation or really being strategic with how you pair things. One of the biggest things that plant based protein is often missing is leucine, and it is really necessary for muscle protein synthesis. So, again, we want to make sure we're not missing those, but we don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We can use those to fill in the gaps, right? We can still count those towards our daily protein goals. Um, they are harder to digest. And so part of why I don't recommend the majority of your protein comes from them is just a bioavailability thing. Even if you are kind of optimizing a plant-based protein forward diet, you may not be getting as much as you would be from animal-based proteins. They're harder to digest and a little bit less absorbable by the body, therefore less usable. But and they can, for some of us with, as I say, emo digestive tracts, be a little bit harder for us to break down and digest. But sorry, I'm hitting the microphone, my Instagram folks. Fill in the gaps. Fill in the gaps, meaning make yourself a solid meal with your animal protein. And if you're like, I'm good with like 3 to 4 ounces of animal protein for right now, they are obviously much more affordable sources of protein. And you've got your veggies and you've got your starchy carbs, then add some beans or again, maybe some tofu or other plant-based proteins, which we'll talk about in just a moment. It doesn't mean we shouldn't eat them just because they're not quote unquote optimal. Fill in the gaps, make sure you're getting those other more complete proteins, and then use these to fill in the gaps, get some micronutrients, get your vitamins and your minerals and fiber. Plant-based proteins are often a great source of fiber, something we all need much more of typically. If you tolerate these foods, you can include them in small amounts in your full, complete, and balanced day of eating that hopefully includes animal proteins at every meal. And this is stuff like legumes, so peas and black beans and chickpeas and lentils and pinto beans and even the pastas that they now make. Some of those are really decent. Lentil pastas, chickpea pastas. Peanuts are technically a legume, so they do have some protein as well. Nuts contain some protein. Seeds, I really love hemp hearts, hemp seeds. We can use things like grains, quinoa, teff, millet. They have some proteins. Tofu, edamame, tempeh, if you tolerate those things. Other products made from soy. Again, some people are challenged with digestion on those, and there's other reasons they may choose to avoid those foods. But fill in the gaps with those as they work for you. And again, maybe protein powders, plant-based protein powders, and even some veggie burgers and veggie patties made from those, again, fill in the gaps. Just know that many of these foods that I just mentioned are often higher in the other macros, so carbohydrates and fats. So just note that. Pay attention to that and how it fits into your day. Eating a bunch of nuts, that's why I was using the example of peanut butter earlier. Eating a bunch of nuts to try to hit your protein goals is also giving you a lot of fat. Eating a bunch of beans to hit your protein goals, awesome, do that. It's also giving you a lot of carbs and a lot of fiber, and you might poop your pants, but it's not bad. This is just facts and it just is. And it's just important to be aware of that and to be informed and to decide accordingly. Last but not least, supplement, I think, as a last resort, but supplement with supplements to achieve your protein goals as needed. So, again, this is the protein powders, this is the protein drinks, these are the shakes. I love whey protein if you tolerate it, if it doesn't affect your digestion, if you are not dairy intolerant. I've recently switched over to and been experimenting and exploring Legion. Legion Athletics brand, and I use their whey protein and I really like it. But I also recommend a beef isolate or an egg white protein powder. You can also find some that contain both, a grass-fed beef isolate with egg white protein powder. Those are great if you want animal protein but can't do dairy. You always want to make sure, especially if you're choosing a plant-based protein powder, again, that it is a complete source. So often these are pea proteins or rice proteins. Don't be afraid to explore and find. I find with all protein powders, whey protein included, there's a lot of personal preference, both in flavor and taste and sweeteners and texture and chalkiness. So find something that you like, and don't be afraid to try stuff and be not into it, because that's, I think, the case for all of us. Collagen is not a complete protein on its own. And I kind of put this in the category of the plant-based proteins we were just talking about. So use it to fill in the gaps as needed. You can count it towards your daily protein goals, assuming you're getting adequate amounts of animal proteins, complete protein sources throughout your day. Count it, fill in the gaps, know that it may have some benefits kind of unique to it. But I would say, please don't use collagen as a post-workout recovery protein, because it's not the best option. It's not really giving you the things that you need to repair muscle and recover after a workout. If you want to make things like protein ice cream and protein cookies and protein pancakes and you like it, and if that entices you to get more protein in your day and throwing protein powder into all of that stuff, listen, everybody's got their own way of doing this stuff. I personally don't like it for the reason that I just feel like it doesn't taste good. It kind of makes me angry because it often feels like it's catfishing, like it's food catfishing me. Like it looks like a waffle, but it doesn't taste like a waffle, or it looks like ice cream, but it doesn't taste like ice cream. It's like chalky weirdness. Um, so if that's a thing that you enjoy and you like it, have it. I would rather eat a little bit more protein at my meals or drink a straight up protein drink and then get in some snacks and have ice cream when I want it. Just a nice scoop of good ice cream and not mess with trying to add stuff to proteinify it or healthify it. So those are the 7 tips. I hope that those are kind of helpful. I'd love to hear if any of that was maybe new for you or new ways to think about protein. I'd also like to, as we often do, open it up for Q&A, any questions that you might have about protein, about increasing your protein intake, about any of the tips I recommended. Yeah, those are hot takes, Julie. If you enjoy chalky weirdness, have at it. I mean, listen, there are people all over the internet and a lot of these fitness bros that will just slam the protein infused everything. And I love that for them, but it's not for me. I'd rather just eat a little bit more chicken and have a cookie and call it a day. I'm going to read some questions that did come in prior to this that I think may resonate with some of you, but I ask you to use the chat both on YouTube or Instagram if you have questions you want to submit. You're welcome, Sarah. I almost said Sari. You're welcome, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm glad it was helpful. So helpful. Would you recommend using a food scale in the beginning to help measuring how many ounces people are getting? Wonderful question. I actually just had a call with a client yesterday where we had a very similar conversation to this. And I would say, I know you don't like this, it depends. I would say for most people, it's not where I would start because most people can do what I shared in the beginning, where I said, just look at your plate. Do you have protein on it? Are you getting approximately a palm to a palm and a half size serving at every meal? I would say largely most people who come to me initially are not doing that. So we start there. We start with kind of easy to approach stuff. Then I would say if I'm recognizing that there's a need for protein increase, if they are on a body composition journey, on a compassionate fat loss journey, and we do want to dial it in more, then yes, we kind of don't know what we don't know, and what gets measured gets managed. So it's hard to know if you're getting enough, too much, if you think that you're getting 6 ounces and you're really getting 3 and you're kind of under reporting for yourself. I don't know if that's the best way to say it, but you know what I'm saying. So I wouldn't start there, but it is a good tool if tracking is not a trigger for you, if it's something you can look at as an opportunity to learn, to grow, to collect the data, and to move forward in a really positive and compassionate way. I love it. And it's the best way to know accurately what you're actually doing. I track several times a week for that reason, because it is very easy for me to undereat. So it's a way for me to make sure I'm hitting my daily kind of minimums and goals. One of the questions that came in, and somebody else echoed this sentiment, was Adrian shared, I get bored. Unlike fruits and veggies, there's only so many options for protein. So chicken, pork, beef, lamb, and seafood, it just feels like the same old, same old. So this is what I would share. You're very welcome. I would love to hear if any of you have any input on this as well, anyone joining me live, but this is what I would say is get creative. Get creative with things like sauces. Get creative with things like condiments. Use seasonings and spice blends and herbs, and play with different cooking methods, and use the grill and bake stuff and roast stuff and pan fry stuff and stews and soups and scrambles. Here's the thing is that each and every one of the various proteins I just mentioned also come in so many different cuts, right? You can get steaks and ground meat, and are you using breast or thighs? And again, if you take all those things I just mentioned and think about it like a matrix and go, okay, I'm going to do chicken, and last week we did thighs, so today I'm going to do breasts, I'm going to do skin on, and I'm going to roast them to get a crispy skin, and then I'm going to use more Mexican inspired seasoning. Then next week you can switch to thighs, and maybe those are skinless, boneless, and you put them in the air fryer and you do more Asian inspired or Indian inspired. I think that if you get creative, there's a lot more out there than you realize. But I also think, kind of to bookend this on either ends of the spectrum, I also think sometimes we have to think about it like it's a means to an end, and not, I know this is going to be a hot take from someone who used to be a food blogger, but not every meal is going to be a gourmet kind of special occasion experience. I think it's important to find the balance between food being functional fuel and food as a source of pleasure and enjoyment. Food as fuel is important because food is necessary. And if we get so caught up in the enjoyment and the pleasure and the special occasion and it needing to be this big gourmet recipe, we can miss out on adequately fueling ourselves and nourishing ourselves. And on the flip side, if we only think about food as fuel, it takes out the pleasure, it takes out the joy. So how can you find the balance between those for you? Food blogging and the internet and recipes and Pinterest, I feel like has kind of ruined us a little because it makes cooking for a lot of people feel really inaccessible. And it also makes it feel like everything needs to be special. And I think sometimes it just needs to be a means to an end, and food should be joy and pleasure. And if we have extremely high expectations at every meal and we're expecting it that it's going to be this big production every time we have it, we're going to set ourselves up for that like disappointment and that dopamine wanting loop, and it never feels like enough. So automating meals, if you are on a health journey, if you are on a fitness journey, if you are working on body composition goals, automate your meals and just, repeat where you can the things you love that work for you, and take the guesswork out and remove the decision fatigue. And Nicole also echoed this sentiment by saying she's wanting to have more variety and not getting bored, but she also has to eat on the go and often finds herself skipping lunch at work and not wanting to eat protein powders. And I would say, same thing. I'm glad that you like that perspective. Thank you. I would say the same thing here is just everything I just shared, and just sometimes we got to suck it up a little and find ways to make it happen and find meat sticks that we enjoy, or turkey jerky or beef jerky, or on the go proteins. I love like the already cooked hard boiled eggs. I love, as I mentioned, cheese sticks and things of that nature. Find easy proteins that take little to no prep, find ready cooked proteins. And then I would say, this kind of goes into the mindset stuff and perspective shifts, is also just asking yourself, what do you want more? Which discomfort is worse? Like the boredom, like you are constantly working to not get bored with foods and wanting to have just constant variety, like, or not achieving your goals or not getting enough protein, not supporting your health in the ways that you want to. Like sometimes we have to kind of pick. Like if you want this gourmet every day, every meal, everything is this experience and this wide variety, then you may not hit the goals that you want, and that's okay. Enjoy that and own that. But if you are on a journey, like if Beth in her food blogging years could see how Beth now eats, she would be shocked at how much boring protein and bullshit, like throw together, throw it in a meal or throw it in a bowl of meals I'm eating. And that's because like it's just not the most important thing to me right now at this point in my life to have extreme special occasion gourmet meals all the time that have fancy names and whatever. So it's just asking yourself, like, what do I want most right now? If you want wide variety, then find a way to make that happen and know it's probably going to take a lot more effort and energy. And that's part of why I've just kind of shifted away, is that I tended to undereat because if things didn't look a certain way and weren't as exciting as I wanted them to be, I just didn't get excited about food, and it was just never enough. Allison shared that she struggles with feeling full. I would love to hear how many of you experience this, feeling full before getting in enough protein. This is something I hear a lot. Julie said this is really solid, practical advice, plus simple isn't necessarily bad. Yes. Well, I'm glad that you feel that way, because I know sometimes it can come across as a little like whatever, aggressive, but the intention is to find the balance, and that keep it simple, stupid. It's why I like the half-ass cooking methods. So feeling full before you hit your protein goals, whether at a single meal or for the whole day, possibly. This is where, going back to what I shared earlier, of work your way up. Don't go from having no protein at your meals or 10 grams of protein to try to like house 50 grams of protein at a meal. That's not going to work for your digestion for most of us. Work your way up and know that for some folks, depending on your unique makeup, depending on your digestion, smaller, more frequent meals may be more appropriate for you. And it's also important to recognize that if you're getting full rather quickly, that this could also be an indication you might need to support your digestive functionality. You might be low in hydrochloric acid. You might be low and in need of support for your pancreatic, your digestive enzymes. You might have sluggish motility because of things like thyroid hypofunction or delayed gastric emptying. We cover all of this inside of Empowered Nourishment, how to better support your digestive function, how to make sure your body's adequately breaking your food down so that it's not sitting in the digestive tract longer than it should, tips and foods and supplements you can include to support stomach acid production and digestive enzyme production. So just know that all bodies are different. And as I shared earlier, some people do better with smaller, more frequent meals. And you may need to do some work on digestive functionality first. Lastly, Christina shared on Instagram, I struggle skipping meals entirely. I could go all day without eating and then realize I forgot to eat, but then I can't eat late because of my acid reflux. And she was sharing that this makes it hard for her to hit her protein goals. So first of all, I want to say thanks for sharing that. I know that that is something that some people struggle with. Again, whether it's hunger, whether it's appetite, often it's busyness and stress and taking care of everybody but yourself. So I would say first and foremost, it's most important to spend some time working on consistency and regularity with meal timing and frequency, and make that sort of the priority, and doing the best you can with balance at meals, and know that things like optimizing protein intake will have to come secondary to that. If you're entirely skipping meals, just telling you to eat more protein or how much protein to eat is not technically the issue here. The issue is that you need to make more space, to eat more mindfully, to make space for your meals. A lot of my clients, if they struggle with this, sometimes it's scheduling it like it's an appointment. This is the time I eat lunch. And maybe you're not hungry, so you eat a small amount of it and come back to it later. But that has to be priority number one. And sometimes it has to be a little brain over body. For a lot of us, our body doesn't speak to us in that just listen to your body kind of way. And you might need to kind of wake things up and improve that communication, those pathways, the way that your body works to speak to you. And again, we cover this in depth inside of Empowered Nourishment. There's a whole section about meal timing and frequency and working on hunger and improving hunger and appetite, especially when you are someone who struggles with low hunger. Mascuzi B said, I rarely feel hungry. I just try to eat 3 times a day, but I rarely feel hungry anytime but in the morning. Yeah, it's thank you for sharing that. And I have been there at points and I still like I have an autoimmune form of kidney disease and one of the side effects is that at times I have very low hunger and very low appetite and it's a challenge and I know when we know we need to eat or for me if I'm a little sad or a little stressed or anxious my hunger and my appetite is the first thing to go. And again, this is where I would say there's some brain over body. Obviously, there might be some other deeper work that needs to happen as well to kind of improve that communication. But I would say be gentle with yourself and be compassionate and know that sometimes it takes a couple of months of that consistency with meal timing and frequency for hunger signaling to return. But I know it's a challenge and I know it makes it really, really hard to nourish yourself when your appetite isn't there. So just be gentle with yourself and think about maybe some ways that you can work with yourself, maybe meals that are easy for you to digest, easy for you to get in when hunger and appetite is low. So thanks for sharing that because I definitely know you're not alone. Any other questions? I wanted to share some of those questions that came in because I had a feeling it was possibly going to resonate with a handful of you. But any other questions about getting in enough protein? I would love to hear if this was helpful. I really, really love these opportunities to connect with all of you. And I appreciate everybody who's been sharing. I just want to remind you that enrollment is open. The doors are always open for you to jump into my brand new program. Empowered Nourishment. That's my self-led Nutrition Foundations program. And it is based on all of my signature methods that I use in Trust and Thrive Academy and with all of my one-on-one clients. And you get instant access. So the links, you can find them in my bio on Instagram or in the caption over in YouTube. You can jump in, get instant access, and start diving into everything we're talking about here tonight, all of the ways that you can work on optimizing your nourishment and your nutrition. You also learn about digestion and gut health and blood sugar balance and emotional eating and all of the mindset work and stress management, all of these important things. Just how much protein does this frog have? The one I'm going to eat later for breakfast. You'll have to look that up on like Chronometer or MyFitnessPal. How I'm sure they're in there because I know people eat frog legs. I've talked to my husband about the stuff his family does in the South or did. I don't know if they still eat frog legs down there, but I've never had a frog leg. I can't answer that off the top of my head, but I know it has some. I will tell you that. Julie said, interested to find out. Oh, thank you for reminding me. Yeah. So I love the question from Julie was interested to find out my favorite protein powders. As I said, I'll link those up in the caption of YouTube. I've been using Legion Athletics and I encourage you to use the link I have because it has a 20% off coupon or whatever discount code if you're a first time buyer. I use their whey protein. It's been enjoyable. I like how easy it mixes into things. I like their different flavors. Very, very fun. You're welcome. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Thank you. They also make plant-based protein powders that I like that they're a blend of usually pea protein and rice protein, which is a really good amino acid profile. Paleo Pro makes a grass-fed beef isolate protein mixed with egg white, and I really enjoy. I wonder where in my notes this was because I definitely skipped over it because I was gonna mention it, but I get ahead of myself and I get excited. Paleo Pro makes a grass-fed beef isolate mixed with egg white protein, and they have different flavors. And then also, if you're someone who wants to make your smoothies and control the sweetness and the flavoring and the type of sweetener, they make a naked version where you can add your own sweetener and flavors. There's several companies that do grass-fed beef isolate proteins now. There's also that company that does the just egg white protein. You can get it on Amazon. I've never tried it, but I know a lot of people use that. And again, it's single ingredient, especially if you're dairy free. And then I'll link up a few of the non-dairy. Oh, hi, Manny. Hello there. You're so welcome. Thanks for being here. Hopefully that helps. And again, I'll make sure to link those up. Any quality whey protein, though, if you like it and you tolerate it, is great. Like, you kind of can't go wrong. So those are really, really good ones that I've used myself and that I recommend and have started to kind of include in my recommendations for my clients. So again, Empowered Nourishment is now open. We have a $50 off early enrollment or whatever I'm calling it discount for a short time. And you get instant access and you get lifetime access. Trust and Thrive Academy will be coming back in the fall. We'll be starting back up in September. So the wait list is now open if you want to get in there and get notified and get some early cool bonuses. And then lastly, I do have a few more openings for end of summer for my one-on-one coaching. And you can find links in my bio or in the caption under YouTube for applying and more information about discussing if you and I would be a good fit for each other. I appreciate all of you being here with me. Thank you so much. I hope you learned something. I hope this was helpful. I hope everybody's going to crush their protein goals tomorrow. I cannot wait to hear from all of you how it's going and how much better you feel. And if you have questions, you know where to find me. I'll see you next Wednesday here on the YouTube and the Instagram. I appreciate all of you being here. Hi, Gina. You came at the end. Thanks, everyone. I hope you are well. Take care. Bye-bye. Oh, how do I end it? You're welcome. Thanks for being here, everyone.